Hey everybody, and welcome to the newest episode of the Haskincast podcast. I'm Scott Haskin, your host, and I'm happy to have you here on this journey with me. We're a few shows in now, and I hope you guys have been enjoying it as much as I have been enjoying bringing you the podcast. Taking a lot more of my time than I thought it would, but I think it's worth it because I've been talking to some great people, had some wonderful conversations, and I'm sure there's plenty more of that to come. So please do remember to rate the episodes, put yourself on the notification list to be advised when new episodes come out. Typically, it's every Wednesday, and I'll have an occasional Saturday or special episode here and there, just depending on how it falls. Definitely appreciate all the comments and the feedback that I've been getting, and really glad that those of you who have contacted me are enjoying it. As always, if you have any questions, any comments, anything that you want to talk about, feel free to reach me at scott@scotthaskin.com. And you can also subscribe there to my website at scotthaskin.com for my email list, which I usually try to put out an email about maybe once a month. I really don't like to bombard people, but unless there's something special that's happening, I really try to keep it to about one a month. Sometimes if a big project is coming out, then I'll send out an extra email just announcing the project. Also announce that on my blog, Google+, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all the places that I'm on. There's a couple I'm not on. I'm not on Tumblr because I don't know anything about it yet, and I'm not on Snapchat. But pretty much everywhere else you can find me. I think I even still have a couple of old MySpace pages available that I can't even get into. So those are far from updated, but they still exist. So there is that. So anyway, got a great guest for you today. I've known her for a number of years, Diane Dresback. She is celebrating the release of her newest book, and we're going to talk to her about that and about filmmaking and some other things. She's a really, really awesome person. I'm very grateful to know her, and let's bring her on the show. All right, and I'd like to welcome Diane to the show. Diane, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Scott. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. I'm looking forward to having a good conversation.
Me too. I think I sound like a broken record because I think I invite everybody on and say it exactly that same way every single time, but I mean it.
Well, hey, as long as it comes from your heart, that's the main thing.
Well, yeah. And I'm one of those people that I use a lot of exclamation points in my writing because if I'm going to say something, I really mean it. Otherwise, yes. What's the point?
Absolutely.
I want to congratulate you on your new book.
Thank you very much.
You are welcome. I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but I'm very excited to. As I understand it, and I have a hard time balancing how much to say versus how much not to say. So I'm going to let you describe the book. But I'm very excited because it really ties into, partially at least, a personal story for you.
Yes, it is a personal story. It's basically, it's my fictionalized account based on true events of my biological mother. I was adopted when I was just a baby, and I did meet her later on in life, and she shared a lot of stories with me that I thought were very interesting, especially her early childhood, as well as the whole thing when she became pregnant and what she was going to do, and in that time it was much different back in those years than it is these days. But it was a difficult decision, and so I kind of go into all of that and tell those stories. Wow. So, she just was a very strong woman and very difficult childhood, and but she came through it all. So I wanted to share those stories, and she said, "Go for it."
That's amazing. That must have been an incredibly difficult time leading up to that meeting?
Well, it took me a while to. Actually, it's pretty involved as far as like how it came about that I ended up meeting her. But I was, just young. I was in college when I had a chance to meet her. So I always knew I was adopted. My parents never kept that never hid that from me. So, I was pretty healthy about the whole topic and stuff like that. But it was fascinating to meet somebody that, to see if I look like anybody.
Oh, yeah.
Do I look like somebody? But it took me a while to figure out how I wanted to tell the story. And some people, well, is it memoir or, is it fictionalized or nonfiction? But I just had to try and figure out how I wanted to tell the story. And I decided on doing it as a novel, just basing it on true events. Because I wasn't there, and a lot of the people that are involved in the stories are gone now. So it's not like I can interview a bunch of people and that type of thing. So I have taken stories that she shared with me and, expanded them and just picked some of them for the novel. So that's the way I kind of got around that.
Yeah, I mean, what else can you do? If you can't actually speak to the other people, you can only take the one account that you have. And you figure there's a good percentage of it that's probably accurate, and there's other memories that are filled in, to be able to tell a story. How much of it would you say was, from your perspective, embellished to her stories versus an exact accounting of what she told you?
I think that there's quite a bit of it that is actually what she told me. Probably, I mean, the little things that I've had to fill in, like I had to come up with a way for her to tell her story, so that's fabricated.
Right.
But I really had to imagine, like when she said this particular thing happened, she didn't give me the situation, like all of the dialogue that happened and what the other person looked like and that type of thing. So that's the type of stuff that I had to embellish on and imagine. And I really tried to stay true to the story. So as far as, basing it on her memory of these events, it's pretty close. I really didn't fabricate thing outside from, like I said, the tool that I use for her to tell her stories. I mean, I stuck pretty close to what she had told me.
Good.
So yeah.
Good.
So
yeah, I like that, because if you have to add a lot of connective tissue, which would be understandable, obviously the less it's going to flow. So the more natural and the more, you can take directly from her, I'm sure it makes it much more enjoyable to experience from the reader's perspective.
Yes. And she, has a lot of people that she knew and affected, and a lot of them are excited to read about it, which is really cool.
Oh, good.
This accounting, I mean, this story, when this all happened to me, it really got me into screenwriting. This was when this whole thing came about a little bit later. Not necessarily right when I met her, but a little bit later, I just really wanted to write about this story. And so I wrote my first feature-length screenplay about this particular story. And I had never done it before, and I thought, well, I'm going to learn how to do it. And it took me like 3 or 4 years to get through it, because I was doing a bunch of other stuff at the same time. And I did it. So it inspired me enough to do that. Of course, the screenplay was terrible because I'd never written one before.
Well, you got to start somewhere, though.
That's right. And it would be expensive to do because it's a period piece and everything. But
okay, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm like, I think I'll be able to turn this into a novel instead. So.
Yeah, finding the right market for something is a real challenge when you have those skills of being able to do something as a film, or you can do something as a novel, or you can do something as a photo album, or narrated. It's there's almost too many options, but in a way it's great, because if you look at it and go, I don't want to do this as a movie, I think I would be best served doing it as a book, then you have the ability to do it.
Right.
Now, would you say that this was, I mean, for you, was it difficult to say, I want to tell this story, but going to actually putting it out for the world to scrutinize? Because as artists, we're always putting ourselves on the line, but this is a really personal thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I mean, I think that, honestly, I mean, that's why I had, I got her blessing to do this because, if she didn't want to put the personal stuff out there, then I wasn't going to do it. Mm-hmm. But we had talked, actually, of writing a book together, but it just never materialized. And so when I finally, said to her that I would like to do this as a novel, she was very positive about that. Okay. And I think that she she experienced a lot, and she learned a lot, and I think she felt that she had lessons that she could share with other people, and so I it's not like I feel bad about putting some of that detail out there. Mm-hmm. And it's mostly about her. I mean, I'm in it a little bit, but the lion's share of the book is really about her and her experience and that.
So this wasn't something that was necessarily a therapeutic adventure for you, or did you find some answers in it for yourself?
No, no. Somebody else had asked me that too. If it must have been therapeutic or it was cathartic or something, and I'm like, well, it was interesting. I mean, I did shed a few tears here and there.
Sure, yeah.
Because there were some. I don't know how I couldn't, but I was always ever since I met her. We always, there was no animosity between us or anything like that. Mm-hmm. So for the most part, there was one that I was like, what? But you have to read the book to find that out.
but I mean, it's understandable. She didn't know you. She didn't give you away. She gave a baby away, right?
Yeah,
because it wasn't like
true.
She knew you, she got to know your personality and just rejected you as who you are. That really wasn't the case.
Right. Yeah, that is very true. Yeah. That is very true.
Yeah.
I was fortunate. There's a lot of people that meet their biological families, mothers, fathers, whatever, and it's not a good reception. And so I feel very fortunate that she was just, she was a wonderful woman, and she had issues and had to make decisions and stuff like that. But it was positive.
Good. I like that your foster parents didn't really hide that from you either. I think that kind of open communication is really important. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, if you were a fragile child and had a lot of emotional issues, then, maybe wait a little bit. But,
fragile. Oh, yeah. No, I'm good.
Yeah. Right. Now, is this something that you, down the road, perhaps would like to make into a film?
Possibly, but it would definitely be down the road. I have some other ideas that I would like to put into the film world first.
Sure.
And again, this would be it would be a period piece. It would be more costly to do that, but who knows? Who knows what might happen?
Well, the magic of cinema. If you get with the right studio, they've probably already got all the costuming and everything just sitting in a warehouse ready to go.
That's true. That's very true. Sets and all that.
Now, speaking of film, you've also got a short that I just watched the trailer on a couple nights ago called To Life. And I thought the trailer was really interesting because it kind of sets the tone, but really doesn't tell you what's happening. And I like that. It's like it's enough to draw you in to go, I want to know more, which is what I think a trailer really should do. I've seen far too many trailers where they're pretty much show you the movie and you don't even need to see it.
Right. That's true. Well, this is an 11 minute short. So, and was trying to leave a little bit of guessing in there. So like what you said, we're not giving everything away, but it was the first film that I shot outside of Phoenix, actually. And we shot that in Austin, Texas when I was there. And, it was fun to, meet some local people. I had a couple people fly in from Phoenix to help me that I had worked with before. We had our DP. She came from the Boston, New York area.
Wow.
And had people come. A guy came in from LA, and so it was kind of an eclectic group. And 2-day shoot, and so we wanted to do something about female friendship. I wanted to. So I wrote a script, and then basically the character, one of the characters was, I had a friend in Austin, an actor friend, and I was helping her. She had an audition she had to do, and so she came over and said, "Hey, can you run the camera?" And I'm like, "Okay." So I went over there, and she fell into this one character, and I thought, I could write something about that.
Ah.
And it's a drama. It's a dramedy, so there's the drama side of things, and but then we tried to kind of put the lighthearted side to that as well.
Sure. Well, I love when things are organic like that. That wasn't something you planned. It just kind of came together, and then, you went over and did something for somebody, and then that kind of enhanced your project. And I love when things work like that. But what doesn't surprise me at all is that you brought in somebody from LA, you brought in people from Phoenix, you flew in someone from New York to do an 11-minute short film. That's you in a nutshell. That's because you go all out and do what you think is going to be best for the project, to within your means.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And we did a Seed and Spark, so we crowdfunded most of it, which people just knew other people, like, hey, you should do, I have a friend over here that does this. And I loved working with Catherine Castro. She was the DP. And we worked together really, really well, which was really fun, because I've only worked with one other female DP in all the projects that I've done, because there's just not as many of them out there. And Catherine she was really, really good. So I was happy that she could fly in, and she stayed with me for a week while we did all our pre-production planning and stuff, and it was really enjoyable.
That's great. And now you mentioned the pre-production. I'm glad you said that, because I think that people tend to get really excited about the shooting part and don't really spend enough time in pre-production to make the shooting part go as well as it can, and to set up the post-production for success. So for a short film, is a week usually about what you do?
Oh, I do a lot more than that.
Oh, good.
I actually, I do a lot more than that. It's just that I can only get her for the week before we were going to shoot. So, we did a lot of planning. We Skyped and emailed and stuff like that. But when she flew in, we really sat down and went over all the shot lists that I, wanted to do, and discussed all that. But normally, I am a big believer in pre-production. I'm kind of an organizer, planner, so I probably plan stuff, maybe over-plan, but I always think that something's going to go wrong. So
no,
why not try and plan as much as you can and organize and have everything done, so when something does come up, you have the time. It's not going to throw you completely off.
Yeah, I'd rather be prepared and have nothing happen than have anything happen and not be ready to manage some kind of crisis, especially when you're on such a tight shoot schedule. Yep,
absolutely. I am a big pre-planner.
Yeah,
always have been. And when we did the feature film that I wrote and co-produced with Biswas, who was in Phoenix, now he's in LA and doing different things. Anyway, that feature that we did, I was really involved in the pre-production, wore a lot of different hats, almost too many hats, and just going crazy. But a lot of the planning was done ahead of time, so it really was helpful.
Yeah, it does. Now, is delegation difficult for you, or did you just not have people to help you on that?
No, delegation usually is not difficult for me. we were trying to do a low budget, and so, I didn't have the luxury of hiring a bunch of people to do a bunch of different things. So,
right.
But no, I'm good with delegation.
Good. I think that's important, especially if you're going to write and produce and direct your own stuff. You have to let go of something somewhere. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, it's just not going to work.
Absolutely. And I'm trying to with projects let go more of the producing, and have other people worry about that. So.
Yeah, that would be nice. I mean, really, the ultimate goal would just to be to focus on the writing and directing, I would imagine, and letting those other really nasty bits like being a producer, because that's a fairly thankless and not easy job.
Yes, that is true. I produced some when I worked with my two sons on projects. I would produce. My youngest son, Devin, would direct, and then my oldest son, Trenton, would write. And we did a few projects like that, and it actually worked really well. But that's fine, because I can wear lots of, I can wear that hat. That's perfectly fun. That was really fun to do those, by the way.
Oh,
Work
really?
with your
well,
kids.
That's good. That's good. And it wasn't difficult working with your own children?
No, because of those roles. I mean, I didn't want. I wanted everybody to kind of do their thing, and I wasn't going to step in and say, "Hey, I think you should do it this way," because I'm not directing, I'm producing.
Right.
So, and he was always one to have these grandiose ideas, and then so he comes up with the idea, and I have to try and figure out how to make it happen.
Right.
So that was always challenging.
Yeah. Was the director part of you ever wanting to step forward and go, if you just shot it at this angle, it might look better?
I did that once. I did it once. And as soon as I said it, I apologize and step back and let him do his thing. It was, I couldn't help it. I was like,
yeah.
I can't do that.
I think that's when you're used to doing a role, and especially one as important and high pressured as a director, it's hard to let that go when you're working on something else. Mm-hmm. Like I did, a 48-hour film challenge where instead of being the composer, which I usually was, I was the sound designer, but I was the on-set point for the composer. And so it was very tempting for me to go, okay, here's what they're shooting. You might want to use an accordion for this scene, or you might want to use a violin here, and just let him do what he was going to do.
Uh-huh.
It's hard to let that go.
Yeah. And I tried to be really good, but that one time I'm like, Devin, maybe, and then I'm like, oh, whoops, I shouldn't have done that. So he was funny though. So we shot, it was a 48-hour film challenge, one of these projects, and we went to 6 locations in basically 24 hours.
Wow. That's heavy for...
It is heavy. And I had to haul around, the props and the table and food and everything. Oh, there were so many funny stories about that whole thing. But it, as a producer, I'm like, okay, I want to make this work because I love the idea.
Yeah.
And then we ended up winning, so that would make it even better.
Well, that's ambitious, though. I mean, 6 locations in that short of time, just the tearing down and setting up eats a lot of that time. And for those listening that don't know what a 48-hour film challenge is, basically on Friday night, you find out what your genre is, what your prop is, and what tagline you have to use in the film. And from that moment, you literally have 48 hours to write, shoot, edit, and turn in. So you have to render it to a finished product. Mm-hmm. I've seen people really push that to the limits, though. I remember there was one group, I think it was at one of the IFP challenges, where the film wasn't rendering fast enough, and I think their laptop battery was dying, and so they hooked their laptop up to a car battery.
Oh my gosh!
And turned the film in that way. Yeah, it was crazy.
That's funny. That's funny.
But that's you work so hard, you can't, just can't give up in that last minute.
Nope. I totally agree with that. I did a lot of the challenges, and I really enjoyed them. And a lot of people might do one and then that's it. They don't like it. But I like the pressure and excitement about, going through that. I haven't done them lately. I've probably done enough of them, but I really enjoyed it. Yeah, really enjoyed them. They were a lot of fun.
It certainly teaches you how to work quickly, how to make decisions. Whereas when you have all the time in the world, you can go back and, well, maybe I want to do this, or maybe it would be better. You don't have time. You have to make a decision, be confident, and just go with it.
Yes.
They certainly taught me how to write and edit myself very quickly, because I had done a bunch of them too. I think that was probably the greatest thing, was to learn to be that creative that quickly and to be able to actually produce a product that could be inserted into a film, and working off of a script instead of the video, because there's no time to get that to me and then have me start writing. Right,
exactly. Yeah.
But they're also great for networking. I mean, you meet so many people doing those kind of projects.
Yep. That was one of the things that before I left Phoenix, for 18 months I hosted the Filmmaker Fusion for IFP, and what was basically, and they're still continuing on. It's still going on.
Oh, they are.
And yeah, they're still continuing that. And so we had a panel of local people that would come in, and there would be a particular topic, like, audio or acting or directing or sound or, whatever it would be. And people would come in, and then I would host that. I would ask a bunch of questions, and then we would open it up for other people. And they were really, really helpful. And a lot of times we had new people that would come that just were interested in filmmaking, but they weren't quite sure how to get in, or
right.
And so I would always encourage them to volunteer for a 48-hour film challenge, because it gives you a very, very quick view of how things can work. And of course, it doesn't mean that all films should be that way. I mean, it's nice to take your time and not do those, but it gives you access to see how everything works. And for me, when I did them, it was really helpful for me because I could meet a lot of people. So I usually would have some people I'd work with, and then I'd bring on new people, actors or crew, and it gives me an opportunity to kind of work with them and see how we mesh, and can they handle the stress of being on set and having little sleep, and so it was a good opportunity to do that. And and some people you probably find that, they don't really want to do it, or they need their sleep or something.
Right, yeah.
And then other people they were great. They were great. So
yeah, they're definitely good scouting events too. And I remember when I was working with the Phoenix Independent Filmmakers group, we did any challenge that came up, we signed up for. And they were great opportunities to go, you know what, we've got another project coming up, and this person was a great DP, or this person was, an amazing set designer. And they're good for scouting. I'm glad they're still doing the IFP classes, because I thought those were wonderful. And I remember when you asked me to be on one of the panels, I was amazed at the variety of people in the audience. You had people that were just wanting to get into it, to very experienced, well-versed people.
Right.
And it was really good to see that mix, because it goes to show that those kind of panels are potentially great experience for everybody, no matter where you're at in the business.
Absolutely.
That's the stuff we need more of. We need more ability to educate each other and work together to make things better. And I think what we tend to end up with is a lot of people that just sort of branch off on their own and kind of do things at the level that they know, and they don't want to learn from other people. I just think if we all work together, we'll come up with better things.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is. I will say that, when you've worked with people before, like a director and a DP, once you've done some projects with each other, you kind of become more efficient, because there's a common language. They kind of know what you're looking for, because they've worked with you before. So there is that, which is helpful, but it also is helpful to try new people, because you might find something that works a little bit better for this particular film. So
sure,
I have enjoyed working with a bunch of different DPs over the years, for sure.
And it really, a lot of times, too, depends on the type of film that you're working with. Some people are really, really good at comedy. Some people are really, really good at horror films, but can't do comedy.
Mm-hmm.
And to be able to have different go-to people for different, whatever you might be filming is always a good idea, too.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, you also edit your own stuff as well.
Yes, not all the time, but when I need to, and there isn't anybody else to edit, and I do enjoy the process. I'm probably not as efficient as somebody that does it all the time.
Sure, yeah.
But I do like the process of putting everything together and massaging it. But I do think it's good to have an outside person. When I say outside person, somebody that besides the director or the writer editing, just to bring in some new ideas and new thoughts about things. And sometimes we get really caught up on a particular scene or a particular shot or something, and it really isn't helping the film. And it's hard sometimes to let those go, but. So I love the collaboration with filmmaking. I really do. That's one of the things that I miss when I'm doing the novels, because that's a very solo type of. For the most part, it's a very solo activity.
It really is. Do you have your beta readers that will go through it and go, okay, this kind of lost me, or I really like this part,
mm-hmm.
or I think that's important.
Yes.
It's like having a test audience for your film.
Yeah, exactly. Well, one of the things that worked really well with this particular novel is as soon as I moved here to the Dallas area, I joined a writers meetup group. And North Texas, they're going to shoot me now because I can't get the name right. So the North Texas writers meetup, and so every Tuesday night I go to that meeting, and I can take up to 10 pages and read that of my novel, and then they give you, you have copies for everybody, and they give you feedback, verbally as well as written. And, you get all kinds of feedback, grammatical and punctuation and story and character, and are you showing, are you telling instead of showing, and all kinds of stuff. Mm-hmm. And it has been so helpful. So helpful on this novel. Yeah. That so it's like having, and it took me probably 7 months to get through this book with them, because I could only do 10 pages a week. Right. So, yeah. But it's like having 10 or 12 people beta reading as you go along and you're doing it. So I immediately will come home and look at everything and rewrite if I, rewrite things and change things. And that was just really, really helpful, I will say.
Yeah, and 10 pages is a lot. Most of the people that I know that are involved in writers groups, they usually do 3 to 5 pages. So to be able to get 10 pages in is great.
It's double spaced. 10 pages double spaced.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
Well, there you go.
It usually works out where you get about 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. So, you read for, 10, 12 minutes and then feedback for the rest of the time. So
now I would imagine the group feedback dynamic would be very helpful, but do you find it's difficult because you're so limited in the amount of text that the references maybe aren't there because they're doing it in such small chunks, and then you go a week or however long between meetings, whereas a beta reader will just sit there and read the book over the course of however many days?
Yeah, well, and that's true, and that's why it's important to have people, read the entire thing. But I'll tell you, in this particular group, there are some people that can remember so much. Some of these people, they'll bring up something that you've read 4 months ago, and mind you, there's probably 8 or 9 other people that are reading their stories as well. And these people have the greatest memory. I don't know how they do it, but they do. They do. So, but most of us, well, I shouldn't say most of us. I should say, for me, it's to have that many stories going along. Yes, I agree with your statement.
Yeah. There are people that just are skilled in memory. I am not one of them.
Me either.
Yeah. If thankfully I can set as many alarms on my phone and as many things in my calendar as I need to so that I'm never late or, forget an event, because I would be completely lost. And I think part of it is because I've become so dependent on the technology. I'm sure if I walked away from it and found another mechanism, I could do it. But why bother? I've got this wonderful technology. Why wouldn't I use it?
Right. No, absolutely.
Yeah.
I definitely have my systems on how to remember, things, and I do the alarms. I keep my to-do list on my phone. I look at it every day, several times a day, and try and keep myself organized. But
well, and you're kind of known for being organized, so that's not too surprising to me.
Oh.
Now, when you're writing, whether you're doing a screenplay or a novel, how do you like your setting? Do you play music? Do you just shut the door and soundproof everything? What do you do?
Music is a huge thing for me. Music is a huge thing. I always write with music, but it has to be music that has no lyrics to it.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So I have basically, I have some soundtracks that are very soft, like this particular book, Room for Another. I was listening to more piano type of music and more emotional, soft, emotional, somber. But a lot of times I'll listen to like soundtracks from movies.
Yeah.
So I love the soundtrack from Black Hawk Down, when I'm working with kind of more of the psychological type of things. Listen to that. And on Pandora, I have my Hans Zimmer thing where they just are constantly playing soundtracks, from all kinds of different movies, but yes, definitely music for me.
Yeah.
And then I usually will, usually once a week, sometimes two if I'm home all week, but I will go to Starbucks and I will sit in Starbucks and write for 5 or 6 hours straight without even getting up out of the chair, which I know is probably not so healthy for me, but I put my headphones on and I just completely get, involved with what I'm doing. As opposed to being at home, I can do that as well, but there's a few more distractions at home. When
you're sitting at Starbucks, you're not going to get up and do the laundry, or you're not going to put dinner in the oven, or you don't really want to get up at all. You found a table and it's yours. Exactly. Well, my husband is gone a lot for work, and so I have a lot of. So there's not that distraction of having other people, and of course my kids are grown, so I don't have the family distractions like day-to-day type of thing usually. Yeah.
So I can sit in. I have a favorite purple chair that I sit in and work on stuff.
Yeah, well, being comfortable is so much a part of it. If you're not comfortable, you're going to be distracted, and it's really hard to just lock into that zone where you don't even realize the sun has gone down or it's tomorrow.
Exactly. That is so true. I'm a late night person anyway, so I'm usually late to bed and late to rise. And sometimes I'm like, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. I got to go to bed.
Yeah, I've done that. I sit facing a window, but the blinds are almost always drawn. And I will just realize at some point that, there's light at the cracks at the edges of the blind. I guess the sun came up and I should probably go to bed now. But that's it. You get locked in that zone and you don't even realize how much time has passed. And it's amazing because usually the material, at least in my experience, the material that comes out when you're doing that is some of the best stuff I've ever done.
Well, you're uninterrupted and in the zone.
Exactly. You don't have to pick up and try and build that momentum because you're going with the momentum. You're in it.
I agree.
When I was writing one of the particularly emotional parts of my novel, I had created a playlist of music from Lost.
Okay.
And it was there were moments where I thought, I think this was the best thing I could have done, and there were moments where I was just so emotional from the music that I had to actually stop working on the book for a minute and calm down from that so that I
Wow.
could write the book.
Yeah.
It was almost overkill.
A little bit too much, yeah.
Yeah. But Zimmer's good. Zimmer, because his music can be very patient, so it's not always really busy and distracting.
Mm-hmm.
So that can be good. Gladiator was one that I tend to use a lot when I need to get things done. I'll put Gladiator on and I get things done.
Right.
The Island from Steve Jablonsky is another one that I really, really enjoy, and I can hear it without hearing it.
Right.
To where it's not distracting.
I'll have to check that one out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll have to check that one out. I do a lot of writing in my head, listening to music while I'm walking. Mm. So I'll take a long walk and give myself a task, like I need to figure out what happens with this character or how I want to, put this shot together or, whatever. And I give that to myself mentally. I put my headphones on, I go for my walk and listen to the type of music that would inspire that. And it's funny, but a lot of times I come home and I've got the answer, I've got the scene, and then I bring out my, I take my phone and I record it on the voice memo. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I do that while I'm walking as well, but just so I can get it down. And that just works really well. Music is definitely probably the biggest thing for me, though.
Obviously, I mean, as a musician, it has an impact on me. What I find difficult is listening to my own music because I'm too busy picking little things apart, going, you should have put that a little more in the background or a little to the left ear or whatever. And I can't relax and listen to it, which is funny because I write relaxation music and I'm the only one that can't relax to it.
That makes sense.
It does. Yeah. But interestingly, I can use it to write with.
Really? Oh.
I just can't use it to relax with. Yeah, because it's very the mental sauna stuff is very calm and patient, and it's not intricate. So it allows me to not be distracted by it and just kind of have it instead of a dead quiet room, which I can't stand.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. I've listened to your stuff. I have I think the first mental sauna one that you had, and I would listen to it to go to sleep sometimes.
Good, yeah. Good. I'm glad that's working.
I need something. Yes, absolutely.
It's interesting you picked that one because the opening track on that I actually wrote for Jessica Marquis in Phoenix when she did her book on unicorns, and she wanted to do a companion CD.
Oh, yeah. Yes, I remember that now, yes.
Yep, so a bunch of us got together and she had approached us and said, well, I'd love it if you'd submit a track. And so I wrote that for her. And they're really interesting because speaking about 48-hour film challenges, the very first one they ever did, they did as a stop frame animation.
Really? Wow.
I don't know people that would pick up a stop frame animation film to do under any circumstances, let alone a time crunch like that. And it was beautifully done. I mean, they did such a great job with it. The final product was fantastic. But who takes on something like that?
I don't know. I worked with Bob, her husband, on one of the 48, or actually it was a 72-hour musical challenge.
Oh, yeah.
That actually is called Wish Inc. And that was quite the challenge. But he helped. He was one of the writers. There was 5 of us that got together, and 4 of us were actually coming up with the script, while the composer was Mark Greenewalt. He was writing music and coming up with ideas because obviously it's a musical, so you have to have lyrics that are, that work and everything. Yeah. And Bob also edited it, and so it's going to be screening at the and we did this several years ago, and it still got in. It's going to screen at the APA's Women's Night Out or Ladies Night Out for female filmmakers and blah blah blah. But it's going to be at the I think it's on November 16th at the Scottsdale Center for the Arts. But anyway, it was a really that was a challenge to have that do a musical in 72 hours.
Yeah, that's a lot of pressure on the composer for sure. And instead of just sitting at home going, okay, well here's the script and I want to do this or maybe I'll try that. No, you've got to do all the stuff up front.
Yeah. he did a great job. He did a great job with it. It was one of those films that it's very kind of uplifting and has a really good feel to it.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what you want in a musical.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, that's fun. I mean, but that's what I love about those challenges, that every one of them really is something different.
Mm-hmm.
After a while, for me at least, it kind of became a formulated thing because I kind of got it down. I got my writing process down. I got the speed down. I got the, I'm going to come home from the writer's meeting. I'm going to sleep for 4 hours. By then I'll get up. They'll have the script. Wait, no, they're not going to send it until the morning. So, I'd get up every hour and check. And you just kind of get into a process. And once you have that process and the time crunch isn't an issue anymore, then it's just like doing any other kind of film. There wasn't as much challenge in it for me.
Yeah.
And I kind of miss being challenged that way, because now any challenge I have is either something I get hired to do in a very short time frame, which those challenges gave me the skills to do, or something just completely out of my comfort zone. Right.
Well, I will say that, with all the ones that I did with my teams, they were really fun and I loved them, but I also loved not having to have that pressure and be able to have, take your time a little bit more, maybe get a good night's sleep in between.
Right.
And yeah.
Well, the other thing becomes, what's the point? I mean, there was a group, I think, that did a 30-day challenge where they did a film every day for 30 days. And I thought, well, what's the point of just turning out films for the purpose of turning them out? I mean, if you're going to be an artist, then do something that's worth putting out instead of just saying, well, we broke the record for, longest streak of films in a day for a month or whatever. I don't see the point. Definitely quality over quantity for me.
Right. Unless they really wanted to gain a lot of experience very quickly. There's that part of it too.
Sure.
I did a lot of films at the very beginning, as a writer-director, and I just kind of cringe at them now but those were my learning films too. So they were very beneficial for what I wanted, what they were for. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, there's still going to be some benefit in it, but to put it out there and to be, they were very publicly involved to make sure that everybody knew what they were doing, and hey, watch our film every day, and let's get our YouTube numbers up and all that. And I'm like, but if you want numbers, then put out something that's going to be of value, and people will flock to that. True. It depends on what attitude you're going into it with. If you're going into it with let's just really see what we can do and push ourselves and grow from this, then absolutely it could be a wonderful thing. Mm-hmm. But that didn't seem to be what their target was to me.
Oh,
but maybe I'm wrong. Okay. Maybe I misinterpreted what they were doing.
Yeah.
But speaking of putting things out, now I know that this book is coming out in paperback. And I'm sorry, I don't think I've even said the name yet. Room for Another is the name of this book. And I love the cover art that you have on the website. It's the baby in the present box, which I absolutely love.
Yes. Thank you. You're the first person that has, I just got that back just very recently. So you're the first person that wasn't involved in actually coming up with it, that I got a comment on. So thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. I it's a very stunning and telling photo. As soon as you start reading the description of what the book is, you really understand why the picture is there. And I just think it's a very, very nicely done cover. But that's coming out in paperback. So are you doing a Kindle also, or an audiobook, or what are your avenues for this one?
Yes, not the audiobook, Kindle, and then so through all the various things, it'll be on Apple Books, and if it goes through Smashwords, which of course then they put it out to a bunch of different places as well, like Barnes and Noble, not the bookstore but online store, and all of that. So so it'll basically be in digital as well as paperback. I love audiobooks. I listen to audiobooks all the time.
Me too. I've worked on quite a few of them. Does this just not translate well to an audio?
No, the very first novel that I did actually had Kane Black.
Oh yeah,
who's an actor that I've worked with. Yeah, Kane did the narration for Promise of Protection, which was the first one, and I did all the editing of it and then submitted it through Audible. So the other novels I have not done, I would like to do, but I'm trying to. I've kind of been waiting for a good site to put it on besides Audible. I've had a few things that I don't like about Audible from an author standpoint. So I was really kind of waiting to try and have these other sites. And there are more sites coming.
I love that you're doing it in print because, like myself, there are so many people that love to have a book and just don't want to convert to the Kindle yet.
That is absolutely true. I had done, in fact, I think you responded to this through my email list, my author email list, and then I also put it up on Facebook and just threw it out there. You know, how do people like to read? And I was surprised that the lion's share of people do still love paperbacks. And then it was audiobooks, and then it was the Kindle or the digital books.
Yeah.
Which surprised me, but maybe, like what you said, you'd like to curl up on the couch with a good book when you can. And so most of my readers are going to be paperback.
Right.
And so, I want to make sure that they're able to do that.
Yeah.
Read it.
Is that partially a generational thing, do you think, or did you test that part of the data?
I didn't do that much. I think that some of that is that way, but yet my son, who is a lot younger, he does read stuff on Kindle the Kindle, but he also likes the paper.
Well, with Kindle, there's a lot of things that have come out that are only available on Kindle. So if you don't have that one, you don't have access to those books at all.
Oh, wow.
So there's an advantage to that. Plus, a lot of times you can get a book for 99 cents, or an author will do a trilogy and they'll give the first book away. So to kind of, get people interested, and then they'll charge for the second and third one.
Right.
So there's a lot of things that you can do with Kindle. You're not going to give away a $26 paperback book to get people interested.
That is very true. That's very true. And there's obviously, I have all the paperbacks. They go through Create Space, which is now kind of merging over to KDP. But the cost that you have to have in order to not go in the hole. I mean, it's great. Print on demand is a great option for people.
Yes.
And so by the time they print it and then they take their cut, there's, not as much, there's not very much left. But,
right.
They're reading the book. So I would rather have them read it and get less than, have them not read it and get more, if you know what I mean. Oh,
absolutely. Yeah, I'd rather reach a wider audience than a profitable audience. I mean, obviously you want some meld of both, but to me as an artist, I think it's more important to reach people, but then to me as a businessman, it's more important to make money. So with this one, this is going to be a softcover edition?
Yes, softcover.
Good. I like those. Because they're more flexible. Like, it's nice to read a hardcover, but if the book isn't, a good 700-800 pages, it just feels weird to have a hardcover. It feels more like a school textbook. Yeah,
that's true. No, I've done all mine are the softcover paperbacks. Yeah.
Yeah, I did mine through Create Space too, and I agree that print on demand is phenomenal. And usually Amazon will take 3 or 4, and they'll keep those in stock, and then when they run out, they'll reprint. So you're not waiting on one to be printed per se. But for us to be able to, hey, I've got a book signing that I just found out I'm doing in 2 weeks. You can contact Create Space and just have them print you a bunch of them and ship them off, or ship them to the venue, because they'll do that for you. So are you going to do any kind of tour with this?
I hadn't planned on it because, I'm kind of like trying to focus on my next project. You and I are project people, so I'm wanting to jump into the next project. So I hadn't plan that. But I don't know. I might have to explore it a little bit.
Well, I've got albums planned. I've got books planned. I've got singles planned. I'll probably do some sort of craft thing somewhere in there. How do you balance what you want to do next? So now you've obviously spent a lot of time working on this book, but you shot this short film. So how do you find your balance between what order you work on your projects?
Okay, so probably the easiest way to say this is if I'm going to do a film, that is going to be the first priority. However, films, sometimes there's a lot of time that happens between films. Mm-hmm. So for me, that's when I write. So I have spent a lot of time working on my next book, planning. And I'm going to try and do a series, so it'll be a series of 3 books. Mm-hmm. And I've spent a lot of time already on it over the last few years because it's just been, I did the NaNoWriMo last year, the National November Writing Month thing. Have you done that?
I haven't because I can't lock myself down to commit to it because I'm usually doing too many things at one time. Yeah. It's an interesting process for sure. But anyway, so I did it last year with this particular project, and I got about 70,000 words done, which is fine. That's good. Yeah.
Not polished, but at least it's there. So I have this trilogy that I want to start working on. But I also have this feature film project that I want to spend a good amount of time doing a lot of pre-production type of stuff, getting ready to go. So once we secure the funding, then I can jump right into it. So, so it just depends on what's coming up. I like both things. I like the writing and the filmmaking, but the filmmaking doesn't happen as much.
Yeah, it's a longer process, and the thing is, for film to work, you have to have the money up front. With a book, you can pick away at it. You could take a weekend, you could take a week or a month or however long you need to, and you don't need the funds to write the book. Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly.
And when you do get the money for a film, you better start in it because anybody who's invested in it is going to want that film done ASAP.
Well, once we're able to secure the financing for this feature film, which would be, I've directed lots of short films, but I have not directed a feature film yet. Mm-hmm. And so that's my goal, is to get it done.
Yeah, get it done.
Get it at least shot by the time my birthday rolls around next year. So so we're really trying hard to secure the funding and move forward. So once the funds are secured, then I will have, I can just jump right into casting and finding a crew and locations and all that kind of stuff.
Are you going to do another campaign? Like you didn't use Indiegogo. Who'd you say you used for the other one?
Seed and Spark.
Seed and Spark, yeah. Are you going to do something like that?
And I did another campaign with that longer short film that I did called Blue Copper. Mm-hmm. I did that through Kickstarter. I did that like 4 years ago. And no, I'm trying not to. I mean, I think that the crowdfunding, it's just very saturated now. And, it's at the beginning, it worked really well because it was new and it was a new way to let people know, or to get people to help you. But you can only help so many people.
Right.
Like even though you want to contribute, sometimes you just that makes it difficult. So I can't say never. I mean, maybe for a portion of it, but I'm trying not to do that this time if possible.
Yeah, and everybody's got their hand out now. I mean, it's not even just the campaigns, which are still going on. There's Kickstarter and Indiegogo and Seed and Spark, and there's a couple other big ones. But now you've got people that, and bless their heart for doing it, but they're doing birthday fundraisers on Facebook. And, I can't give to everybody. And then you feel guilty when you give to one person that you care about and not another one. Or I just can't be bled every day for something. you know?
Yeah, I hear you. I definitely hear you. I mean, I've and it takes a lot of work. I certainly know how much work it goes into running a crowdfunding campaign, but it just isn't quite as effective as it once was. Mm-hmm. I mean, people are still doing it, but
yeah, and to do something like Patreon, I mean, you really need to have a huge following You need to have a lot of dedicated fans to be able to make something like that work. And,
Yes.
People will support you, they'll sign up, but not everybody that's, if you get 1% of your mailing list to donate, you're doing pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's definitely tough that way. But I think with your connections, with your ability and your drive, I think when people see that, I think you'll get some good support.
Well, I hope so.
I do too.
You.
I want to see you make this film. Shorts are great. You can cut your teeth on them. You can learn a lot. You can practice. You can experiment. But at some point, you got to do a feature.
Yep, absolutely. Well, I've got, this feature will be based on my second novel, which all three of my first three novels were all film ideas anyway. Mm-hmm. So then when I ended up moving to Texas with my husband, I knew I wasn't going to be doing film as much, and so I thought, okay, I'm going to take these ideas, put them into novels, which was actually really kind of fun to do, to go from screenwriting to novel writing, because you're so much more free with the way that you can write. You can say, oh, this person felt this way, or what their internal thoughts are, where you can't really do that in screenwriting.
Right.
So that was really cool. Plus, it allowed me to really get to know my characters a lot better, because I had to.
Well, because you're creating the character now. You're not letting the actor have any room to do anything. You have all of that responsibility.
Yeah. So from 90 pages, versus, however many, 300 pages or whatever, you have to just go into a lot more of their backstory, a lot more of everything about it. So that, I think, has helped me by taking the novels now and putting them back to screenplay, even though I have to cut a lot, and obviously, but at least I know my characters much better.
Yeah, that's true, and so that will allow you to make a more tailored screenplay to get what you want, and maybe that would change who you would cast, because now you've seen it through a different set of eyes. And at least you're not cutting down Stephen King novels into movies, because every one of those could pretty much be a miniseries of some kind.
Yeah, it's true.
But for me, the challenge in writing a novel versus a screenplay was filling in all the colors, not just the characters and making them important and whether you wanted the audience to love them or hate them, get them to that point. But it was all the, setting the scene for every moment, what the sky was like, what the room smelled like, all those kind of things is where I found the challenge.
Yeah. Well, there are some books that the author really, really goes into a lot of that. I tend to, I'll put some of it, but I don't belabor the point as long as some authors do. And I think that's probably because I'm thinking of film. Right, yeah. But that's some of the feedback that I've received on my novels is people are saying, the pace was quick, it was fast, and I couldn't put it down. I just kept, and I tend to write short chapters, which can also draw the person in. It's like, oh, I can read 3 more pages. I can read 2 more pages. Oh, I could read 4 more pages. And so they get through them pretty quickly. Yeah,
that's a good point, because I tend to do that. I will, when I'm getting close to finishing a chapter, I'll look ahead at the next one and see how many pages it is. And if I'm not, too tired, I'll push myself a little bit, and then I'll be, then I'll wake up in that chapter and go, okay, one more.
Exactly.
One of the last books I read, and I don't remember which one it was, but it might have been a Grisham novel or something, but I was about 5 pages from the end and the power went out. And no. I thought, no, I'm not letting that stop me. So I lit a candle, and the only way I could get the candlelight on the book was to sit at this really awkward angle on my bed. And of course, 5 minutes after I finished the book, the power came back on. But you get engrossed. There's the momentum, but there's also that I don't really want to stop, even though I know I need to stop. And that's a sign of good writing, that you've got people.
Right. Absolutely. I agree with that.
Yeah.
That's funny about this.
Oh, yeah, and that was,
story.
I can't imagine what the look on my face must have been. Fortunately, I lived alone, and it was dark, so no one saw it. So before we go, and of course I'll have all the links in the show notes so that people can find you very quickly. I highly recommend signing up for her mailing list. She sends out about once a month, right?
Yeah, sometimes a little bit more when a book release is coming, but
yeah,
sometimes less, sometimes more. Yes,
that's what I really try to do. I if there's a release or something major happening, then I'll do more than one a month. But I don't want to bombard people. I don't think my life is that exciting. I put out a lot of stuff, but it's not on a daily basis.
Right. I'll send something, like I'll do a blog. When I first went to Texas, when I first came here like 5 years ago, I started doing a blog every single week, and then it kind of tapered off. So now I do one every couple months or so. So if a new blog comes out, I'll definitely be letting people know that it's out with a link, or if it's a book, and I do include some of my film stuff on there as well. Just because that's me, right. It's hard for me to separate them,
Well, I think it falls under the Diane umbrella. This is everything I do. It's like me, because I do music, I do books, I do, a couple different things. And it really gets hard from a marketing perspective. Like, do you follow me because you like my books? Do you follow me because you like my music? Is it just the relaxation music? Is it the film music? There's so many little subcategories.
Well, maybe they're following you because they like you.
Well, that would be nice to think too.
Yes, but they like your creative, your creative ability and all, so I think that has something to do with it too.
Well, I'm not going to complain about that possibility. And I have people that they'll bring me to one of the shows here in Vegas, and they'll ask me to post a review about it. So I'll do that as a blog, and then I'll submit it to Yelp and that sort of thing as well. So there's a lot of really varied content. I feel like I'm kind of all over the place. I'm like one of those, just like a box with a question mark on the side of it, and you just reach in and you get whatever toy is available that day.
I love that.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
So before we go, because you've got so much experience as both an author and as a filmmaker, and you tend to probably think of your books as a filmmaker and your movies as an author, what would you say to somebody who really just has all this creative juice like you do, and they kind of don't really know what to do with it? What advice would you give to somebody that's just bursting to start somewhere? I know I'm putting you on the spot.
No, that's okay. I mean, what would I tell them? Well, I would tell them to just start with something small. Whatever their creative passion might be, to kind of discover what that is. And sometimes you can discover what it isn't before you figure out what it is. So just start with something small. Like with the filmmaking, I did the screenplay. That was kind of my foray into doing something more creative from a writing standpoint. And then I did a short film that I didn't really do too much on, but it let me see that, I kind of like this, and then, kind of continue on from there. So, but I think you need to, as opposed to going in and completely overwhelming yourself with this huge project, like if you're not sure, if you want to write, but you're not sure that you can handle a whole novel, then, write an article or write a blog or write a paper or just do something creative, just something small, and then build from there.
Yeah. I mean, you can write a short story and write a bunch of short stories, and if you're comfortable with them, you can release those as a collection at some point. There's so many different things you can do. I tend to write a lot that people won't hear because it's just not really releasable. It's just exercises, things to kind of stimulate my brain, or I want to try this and see how it would work. And then, maybe I'll use that concept in a project later on down the road. But the scratch versions, usually don't go out unless I specifically want like demo feedback or something. Right.
I think that's very true. And then sometimes what you'll find, or what I've found, is that those, like from a short screenplay or a short story, that you've got something really solid that you can expand into something longer if you want to. But at least by starting with whatever that core idea is, and then kind of expand from there.
I like that. Yeah. I think that's the thing, is build the foundation. but find what you're really passionate about. If you want to be a filmmaker, but maybe you don't want to be a producer, or maybe you don't enjoy directing, there's plenty of other parts of filmmaking that you might enjoy more.
Absolutely.
I think that's the beautiful thing about being a creative, is that there's so many facets and so many different things that you can do with it. It almost becomes like having too many options at the vending machine. You've got $1 and you want to pick just the right thing, but you're like, I don't want to spend the dollar until I know.
Yeah, that's true. So just spend the nickel. And then once you figure out that you like or don't like it, then go from there.
Exactly, yeah. Or just borrow like one cookie off of somebody else's until you find the one you like. Diane, it has just been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I wish you great success, especially with Room for Another. I think that it's going to be something that a lot of people will identify with, and definitely looking forward to reading it myself. And I'll have the links to the availability of it posted in the show notes for everybody that wants to check it out.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. It's been really wonderful talking with you, Scott. It's like just having a conversation on the phone, and a few people are listening in.
That's it. Yeah, that's the goal, is you want it to be really comfortable and not feel too interviewy, even though I'm asking all the questions.
No, it's been wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Take care and good luck, Diane.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.
Wow, that was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed my conversation with Diane, and I hope you guys did too. Definitely check out her new book. Links are in the show notes. If you're getting it where there aren't show notes, you can go to my Facebook page or my Facebook group and look at my Haskincast podcast album. And in there are all the individual shows posted with the picture of the guest, and then all the links in the bio inside. You can also find it on Pinterest as well. My website doesn't have the, or actually I think it does have the show notes now. Anyway, if you don't have the access to any of the show notes and you would like them, again, feel free to email me at scott@scotthaskin.com. Thanks for listening, guys, and see you next week.